So, what do you look for when you're deciding who's black, right? Particularly when it comes to, racially ambiguous folks, right? Of course, we know that monoracial folks, obviously, we can look at them and say that they're black, right? But this is more so towards the racially ambiguous people who may have, a look that may not totally register as black, but you may be able to spot some of the blackness in them, and you may be like, hey, that person's black, right? Black slash African American, they're part of the community, right? Um, some cues we can look for are cultural, right? Cultural. Perhaps like a person's name, you know, if they have a name like, say, Rashid or Rashida Jones, right? Then I'm thinking, okay, you probably have a relation to someone who's black. Of course, it's not 100%, but that's a good, that would raise a red flag for me, right? If I was looking at someone who looks white, but they have a name like Rashida Jones, right? Like, where did that name come from? Right? Another cultural cue, that you can look for is, the way that they talk, the way that a person talks, the vocabulary they use, the cadence of their voice, right? Of course, this is not 100%, you know, foolproof, but, it's a cue that you can look for, right? Like, if they're using a lot of slang, a lot of black slang, speaking in African American vernacular English, you know, raise a red flag for me, right? um, Another way is like, the way that a person dresses, right? Um, the way that people dress often um, signifies culture, right? But this probably isn't the best way because, in fact, really cultural things aren't really the best way, right? But those, cultural things are some of the things that we can look for, right? But since race is more so biological, of course, there's a sociocultural aspect to race. Of course, we know that. But race is more so biological, right? So when it comes to the biological things, right, our features, our phenotype, right? What are some of the things that we look for as black folks, right? What are some of the things we look for, Hmm. Say one thing, I think maybe the lips, sometimes the lips, this isn't 100% of the time, of course, but sometimes the lips kind of have a certain look to them. When it's like, has like some black influence in them, like lips that don't quit, um, the nose, a certain shaped nose, right? Of course, there's black people who do have like thin noses, and of course, there's black people who have broad noses, right? I say a nose is one of those things. Let's see. Skin tone, right? Um, if your skin has a certain look to it, right? Because you can kind of see, sometimes you can kind of see from a person's skin tone if you know what to look for, if it has like a certain influence in it, you know? Because I think I mentioned this before, but I think black people tend to have sort of a richness to their skin tone that I don't see in every single brown person's skin tone, right? Um, you know, that's something to look for too. Um, let's see. Another one that I think some people may not notice is the shape of a person's head. I think that is a signifier of race too, because I think West African people tend to have like kind of like a round head. Because I think my look does sort of sync up to a West African look as far as like the structure of my head is concerned. You know, of course, the skin tone would throw people, right? But um, yeah, I think the shape of that person's head can signify kind of like race too, right? Um, and of course, sometimes just we as Black people can kind of, we might not be able to point out why we think the person is Black, but something in us sort of like registers as Black, but we can't put our finger on it. But it's like just something about you and your look makes me think that you might be part of my tribe, right? It's like that sixth sense that Black people have when it comes to spotting who's Black and who's not Black. And I think that's because we're so used to Black people in different variations, right? We're used to the variations of Black people, right? You know, of course, from like, you know, um, the dark skin to your peanut butter to your light skinned folks, and even to your white passing people. You know, when it comes to white passing people, especially, one thing that always, like one thing that I really look for, and one thing that oftentimes really hits the nail on the head and decides whether someone is Black or not Black is, above all else, hair texture. Our hair texture is very unique. You know, I know that there are other racial groups who do sort of have that kind of like, you know, kinky, coarse hair texture, but mainly that's us. You know, I know there's like some groups, some other groups outside of Blackness who have it, but mainly that is us, right? Our hair texture, right? Um, for me, like for me personally, you know, I do look for hair texture, and oftentimes when I'm looking at celebrities who I'm thinking, I wonder if they're part Black, you know, wonder if they're, you know, part of the community or whatnot. Oftentimes, if you look at the childhood photos, especially when it comes to like the guys, the afro, you always got like that those childhood photos of like that big afro, right? Um, you know, like Vin Diesel, he has some photos floating around of him with an afro, right? And The Rock too. Um, so yeah, like the hair texture, right?